ladies and gentlemen, the 2016 School Counselor of the Year, Ms. Terry Torzinski.
Thank you so much for that. I am sure I speak for everyone here in saying thank you to Mrs. Obama for hosting this White House event and supporting our work by recognizing school counselors at the national level. Yes. 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 The profession and the students we serve will forever be enriched by the initiatives you have established. As the change in administration occurs, raising questions about the direction education will take, I can promise you all school counselors will continue the legacy you have established. We will work to help all students reach higher and achieve their full potential. Thanks also for the American School Counselor Association for the support and professional development that you offer school counselors. I feel so blessed to be a part of an association that truly values its members, one that is intentional about offering the tools and guidance we all need to be successful in our profession. Thank you, American School Counselor Association. Finally, thank you to the other educators here today. I am honored to stand here among you and know that amazing work happens in your building every single day. In a profession where we may not always feel gratitude or immediately see results, I want you to know that your work is greatly appreciated. Take a moment and think about the lives you affect daily through your profession to help others. No other profession is as deeply fulfilling as that of an educator. So let's be intentional about remembering this today as we are all being recognized for the impact we have on students and families. This impact is multifaceted and critical to our society and our communities. In her speech at the ASCA National Conference in 2014, our First Lady spoke about a ripple effect. She said that ripple effect would spread our influence. Mrs. Obama said we need to be cognizant of not only the child we have helped to transform, but also the family that child will someday raise. We need to think how our work will continue in our students' hearts and minds, as well as the hearts and minds of everyone they touch. Think about that for a moment. That is the power that resides in believing in our young people and doing whatever we can to help them reach their goals and dreams. As you may know, I work in a career center in Western Michigan. A large portion of my role is helping students determine what those first crucial steps will be after graduation and providing them with support they need to make the right decisions. Kyra, one of my students, had a hard time believing in herself and sold herself short in many ways. She did not think she was good enough or smart enough to be successful in high school. Kyra could not see that her passion to help others and her selflessness when dealing with friends and family in need would someday lead to her life's calling. She did not realize that these amazing, innate qualities would put her in a position to help others. Through our conversations about her goals, aspirations, fears, and dreams, Kyra started to realize her potential. She began to find excitement and enjoyment in her learning, and her vision of the future came into focus. Today, Kyra works in the medical field, helping others while attending classes while earning her nursing degree. When I think of Kyra, I think of the many lives she's changing and will change throughout her career. This is the ripple effect Mrs. Obama mentioned. Through persistence, caring, and support for our students, we make a difference in their lives, and they make a difference in the lives of others. We all have stories like this. All of you have stories like this. Yeah. Our students and their stories are why we love what we do. It's why school counseling is less about a career path and more about who we are as people. Regardless of the grade levels we serve, no student can fall through the cracks on our watch. We must work to eliminate barriers to their success by ensuring, to the best of our ability, that all students receive the support they deserve. This applies to those with aspirations of obtaining college and community college degrees, as well as those who seek to go to the military or earn career and technical certifications. This applies to certifications. This applies to first-generation college goers and those who may never go beyond high school because they struggle with poverty, homelessness, or live in communities where drug use and abuse rips away at the family fabric. We need to be advocates for these students. We need to spark the motivation. We need to be the leaders who create systemic change to support the dreams of our country's youth. So I leave all school counselors today with a challenge and a call to action. Provide your students with everything you can offer, consistently and passionately, every day. When times are difficult and you feel overwhelmed, remember why you are a school counselor. Remember your students' stories and the impact you have. Remember the huge role you play in their growth and development. Remember that if it wasn't for all of you on the stage, many students would not be where they are today. By keeping all these things in your heart, I know this team of change agents will persevere and continue to do amazing work each and every day. I can't say it enough. I am honored to be on your team. Thank you. And now, there is no greater honor I can imagine than to introduce to you to someone who understands the value of great education. Our school counselor-in-chief, the First Lady of the United States, Mrs. Michelle Obama.
Rest yourselves. We're almost at the end. Hello, everyone, and may I say for the last time officially, welcome to the White House. Yes. Well, we are beyond thrilled to have you all here to celebrate the 2017 National School Counselor of the Year, as well as all of our state counselors of the year. These are the fine women and a few good men. One good man who are on this stage, and they represent schools from across this country. And I want to start by thanking Terry for that wonderful introduction and her right on the spot remarks. I'm going to say a lot more about Terry in a few minutes, but first I want to take a moment to acknowledge a few people who were here. First, our outstanding Secretary of Education, John King. As well as our former Education Secretary, Arnie Duncan. I want to take this time to thank you both publicly for your dedication and leadership and friendship. We couldn't do this without the support of the Department of Education under both of your leadership. So I'm grateful to you personally, and am very proud of all that you've done for this country. I also want to acknowledge a few other special guests we have in the audience. We've got a pretty awesome crew. You know, as one of my staff said, you roll pretty deep. Like, well, yeah, we have a few good friends. We have with us today Ted Allen, Lala Anthony, Connie Britton, Andy Cohen. Yeah, Andy Cohen is here. Carla Hall, Coach Jim Harbaugh, and his beautiful wife, who's a lot better looking than him. Lana Perea, my buddy Jay Farrow, Kelly Rowland, Usher. Ooh. Keep it down. Keep it together, ladies. Wale is here. And of course, Allison Williams and her mom are here. And all these folks are here because they're using their star power to inspire our young people, and I am so grateful to all of you for stepping up in so many ways, on so many occasions. I feel like I've pestered you over these years, asking time and time again, well, where are you going to be? I'm going to be in New York. Can you come? Can you come here? Can you do this? Can you tape that? Can you ask for that? Can you come? Can we rap? Can we sing? So thank you all so much. And it really means the world to this initiative to have such powerful, respected, and admired individuals speaking on behalf of this issue. So congratulations on the work that you've done, and we're going to keep working. And today, I especially want to recognize all the extraordinary leadership team that was behind Reach Higher from day one. And this isn't on the script, so they don't know this. I want to take time to personally acknowledge a couple of people. Executive Director Eric Waldo. Where is Eric? You got to step out. Step out there. There goes Eric. Eric's acting like he's a ham, but he likes the spotlight. He's acting a little shy. I want to recognize our Deputy Director, Stephanie Sprouse. Stephanie, back there. And he's really not going to like this because he tries to pretend like he doesn't exist at all, but our Senior Advisor, Greg Darnader. Woo! There you go. Greg has been a leader in education his entire life. I've known him since I was a little organizer person, and it's just been just a joy to work with you all. These individuals, they are brilliant, they are creative, they have worked miracles with hardly any staff or budget to speak of, which is how we roll in the First Lady's office. And I am so proud and so grateful to you all for everything that you've done. So let's give them a round of applause. Or you can leave them. And finally, I want to recognize all of you who are here in this audience. We have our educators, our leaders, our young people who have been with us since we launched Reach Higher back in 2014. Now, when we first came up with this idea, we had one clear goal in mind. We wanted to make higher education cool. We wanted to change the conversation around what it means and what it takes to be a success in this country. Because let's be honest, if we're always shining the spotlight on professional athletes or recording artists or Hollywood celebrities, if those are the only achievements we celebrate, then why would we ever think kids would see college as a priority? So we decided to flip the script and shine a big, bright spotlight on all things educational. For example, we made College Signing Day a national event. We wanted to mimic all that drama and excitement traditionally reserved for those few amazing football and basketball players choosing their college and university teams. We wanted to focus that same level of energy and attention.
At today's White House press briefing, the topic of President Biden calling out for the late Congresswoman Jackie Walorski was repeatedly brought up. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre fielded multiple questions after the president had a shocking moment calling out, quote, "Where's Jackie?" at an event earlier in the day. Walorski, an Indiana Republican lawmaker, died last month in a car accident. Jean-Pierre sought to minimize the moment, claiming the president's language was due to Walorski being, quote, top of mind. Reporters were befuddled by her response and continued asking.
Why we're all here for this on this historic day. The Secretary of Agriculture already said anything, so I'm leaving. So I apologize you for any repetition that may occur here. But all kidding aside, it's been over 50 years, to state the obvious. You all know it well. since President Nixon convened the original White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health. And that single conference and the laws it inspired led to transformational change that has helped millions of Americans live healthier lives for generations. Since that time, advances in research and medicine have taught us so much more about nutrition and health. And today, I'm convening this conference again because I believe we can use these advances to do even more to make America stronger and a healthier nation. And so many of you know so much about this as well, and you're committed. And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here to help make this a reality. And thanks to Senator Stabenow, Representative DeLauro for their leadership. And here today we have advocates and activists, Jose Andres. You heard of him, haven't you? Last time we hung out on the Ukrainian border in Poland. And leaders of business, labor, agriculture, faith, and philanthropy. And to achieve ambitious goals that I know we can do if we work together. I really do know we can do this. End hunger in this country by the year 2030.
What happened in the hunger event today? The president appeared to look around the room for an audience member, a member of Congress who passed away last month. He seemed to indicate she might be in the room. What happened there?
So the president was, as you all know, you guys were watching today's event, a very important event on food insecurity. The president was naming the congressional champions on this issue and was acknowledging her incredible work. He had already planned to welcome the Congresswoman's family to the White House on Friday. There will be a bill signing in her honor this coming Friday. So, of course, she was on his mind. She was of top of mind for the president. He very much looks forward to discussing her remarkable legacy of public service with them when he sees her family this coming Friday.
He said, "Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? She must not be here."
No, I totally understand. I just explained she was on top of mind. You know, this wasn't what we were able to witness today and what the president was able to lift up.
As the gentleman would like.
I thank the gentleman from Pennsylvania, my friend and colleague. And our history goes back a little farther than before we knew each other, and that's to Lancaster County. And I worked for a business headquartered in Lancaster County that taught me a lot of things. It taught me how to budget. It taught me how to look out for the future. And plan. And it taught me how to listen. And I think that's the thing that we do best when we're representing the people that send us here to do their work. And during President Biden's interview with 60 Minutes, that marked the first on-air sit-down interview between the president and an American journalist in 7 months. It's abundantly clear why his handlers have been keeping him away from the cameras. He's completely out of touch with the American people. He can tell us stories about when he was in Scranton. That was back in the 70s. I was probably about 8 years old the last time President Biden, I was 8 years old when he came to Washington, D.C. So he can tell his stories from before I was 8 years old. But he's been here for 50 years. He ought to remember that the last time we had this kind of inflation, President Reagan was leading our great nation out of the disaster of the Carter years. And it looks like President Biden has failed to learn from that history, because those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it. Unfortunately, the president's forcing all of us to repeat that history of runaway inflation. During his interview, President Biden pushed back when pressed about inflation soaring to record highs, arguing that the month-to-month inflation rate has remained steady at 8.3% compared to a year ago. I guess we're supposed to say thank you. But thank you doesn't put gas in the car. Thank you doesn't put food on the table. And thank you doesn't make sure that families can save for their children's education. Keep in mind, this is the same president that told the American people inflation was transitory. So I don't know if he means it's going to come back worse than it is now, or what he's thinking. But now he's spiking the football and taking credit for persistent inflation not getting worse. That's interesting. Not getting worse. It's almost like somebody that lights one house on fire and then takes credit for the house next door not catching on fire. Okay? I just can't understand it. The president can try and spin the narrative on inflation all he wants. But last night, Americans watched the president speak, and they got a glimpse into the future of our country if Washington Democrats remain in control. The reality is inflation is at a record high. American families are making tough decisions about their budgets. Decisions that President Biden has had to make since 1973, when he started collecting his check from the taxpayers. But the people for which he works are having to make those decisions. Hardworking Americans deserve real answers on how their government plans to reduce inflation, not just maintain historically high levels of it. Washington Democrats can't give the American people straight answers because it's their policies that have put us in economic turmoil. Republicans have a plan, and my colleagues so very well laid it out here before me. Regular order, making sure that every person's representative and every state senator has input on the legislation. The Republican Study Committee produced a budget that would balance in 7 years. Think about that. A balanced budget. That's what all the families have to do that are living through these disastrous policies of President Biden and Democrats that have caused them to lose 1 month's income. Think about that, 8.3% inflation. It's not a hard equation. I can write it on a chalkboard for the president. You take 12 and you divide it by 8 or you take 1 and divide it, or 1 divided by 12 is 8.3. So you got 1 year, there's 12 months in the year, that's 8.3. Not a hard equation. Although, they don't have a problem spending money. President Reagan used to say that you can't accuse them of spending like a drunken sailor, because at least the sailor is spending his own money. What they're spending is not their money. They're spending our children's money. They are robbing the future from our children. Talk about taxation without representation. Regular order needs to be restored. When we talk about the plan we have for balancing the budget, elimination of waste, and to stop leaving a financial disaster for the next generation, those are the issues that really matter to American people that we all come here to represent. The hardworking men and women who have worked their entire life, and those who get up and go to work every day to earn a living and support their families. I am committed to fighting for what they believe is important, not what the Democrats and the president inside this beltway thinks important. He's really policies are creating an issue with people being able to take care of their family and realize the American dream. When you look at the energy policy, when you look at the massive spending, when you look at the president standing at Independence Hall telling us that half the American people aren't good. That's not how you lead a nation. That's not how you be responsible. Quite frankly, how we be responsible is we listen, we include the people with the solutions in the discussion, and we work to make sure that America is strong and safe and our children have a bright future. That's our jobs. And I'm committed to making sure that I help all my colleagues here in Congress achieve that goal. So I thank the gentleman again, and I yield back.
I'd like to thank the gentleman for his wonderful comments. What's one of the things that's most frustrating about this is not only, as the gentleman just mentioned, the administration doesn't seem to understand the impact of their policies that have led to these rising prices and the pain that is causing for people in our districts.
Excuse me if I may jump back in. I don't think you could do this by accident. I mean, even to get things this bad, I don't know that you could do it by accident, quite frankly. I mean, it's an assault on American energy. It's an assault on American jobs. I just wonder what's going to happen when somebody has an electric vehicle and they get home from a long day's work and they're told they can't charge their vehicle and their child needs to be rushed to the doctor or the hospital. You know, I know when my son was 3, he had an accident, and we got him to the hospital, and they life-flighted him to the trauma center. And if we'd have run out of gas, he'd have died. So you know what? I think maybe they need to think about Americans and Americans' priorities, which is their family, and what it means.
Who else seeks recognition? Mr. Heiss is now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just say the reason that the ranking member has sent 34 letters is because all 34 have been ignored. There's not been a single answer, and you would think at some point there would at least be the integrity to answer some of those letters. And quite frankly, if there is nothing to fear with Hunter Biden, then there is no reason Democrats should refuse an investigation. If there's no problem, then that's fine. There's no problem. But we believe there is a problem. We believe it's the responsibility of this committee to do its job and to investigate. I support totally House Resolution 1243. Whether Democrats care to admit it or not, there are serious concerns about the business dealings of the Biden family. There are serious concerns. These get to whether our commander-in-chief, the President of the United States, has sought to enrich himself and his family at the expense of our national security. Again, if there's nothing there, then that's fine. But let's investigate it. We have serious concerns that indeed there is something there. The Biden administration has sought to pretend that these issues do not exist. They will not answer questions from the press about the Biden family's business affairs with foreign countries. They ignore to request oversight committee Republicans for documents and information. They claim that their policies do not allow for the production of such documents. All of this is nothing but hiding, trying to avoid what is potentially extremely damaging, not only to the Biden administration, but to our nation. This administration is content to hide behind the safety blanket provided by the mainstream media that any evidence of these matters is misinformation. President Biden has insisted that he was not even aware of Hunter's business dealings. Business dealings, by the way, that involve companies tied to the Communist Party of China, America's chief rival on the national stage. But there is indeed, in fact, mounting evidence that President Biden was not only aware of what was going on, but was involved in what was going on. Why would President Biden lie about this? In the absence of truth, we're left with no other option but to draw our own conclusions. If this were President Trump, which the Democratic Party continues to be obsessed with, they would be having a feeding frenzy over this. But with President Biden, absolute crickets. It is not misinformation that there are serious concerns and mounting evidence of wrongdoing, and this needs to be investigated. What possible reason is there not to investigate this matter? What possible reason is there not to want to get to the truth? Let's learn the facts. Madam Chair, I urge you, let's learn the facts. Let's investigate this, which is, by the way, supposed to be the responsibility of this committee. Let the Biden family explain their actions. If there is nothing to hide, then there's no problem. But we need to know the truth. We need the truth. And the documents we are requesting through this resolution will help us find the truth. There is no reason to oppose this resolution. And with that, I'll yield back.
The gentleman yields.
Time for the Hot Topic Buzz. Another gaffe from the president. Biden looking for the deceased representative, Jackie Walorski, at an event yesterday. The White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, tried to clean it up. Watch.
And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here.
She was on his mind. She was of top of mind for the president. He very much looks forward to discussing her remarkable legacy of public service with them when he sees her family this coming Friday.
Yeah, it's getting hard to take at this point, Dagan.
Why can't
what can you say?
Why can't they just be
honest? How about some honesty?
Just say
he made a mistake.
He just forgot that she had passed away, and he didn't mean any disrespect. Yeah. Just say that.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
But again, there is
she went right to her talking
point. They
points.
blithely lie.
Yeah.
At every turn, rather than just once, just tell us the truth.
So much, Charles.
Yeah, at some point, it's no longer gaffes. It is clearly evidence of something that is seriously wrong. And you're right, Dagan. I mean, the idea that you're sitting there and refusing to acknowledge what everybody saw, it was abundantly clear, and go right to the talking points and try to spin the situation. At some point you start to lose credibility with people, or I would say they've long ago lost credibility. But but you know, these are serious times, and having this kind of insanity going on in the White House is not instilling confidence in people.
I think Karine Jean-Pierre is having a hard time because she just goes to talking points on everything. I mean, the worst was yesterday when Peter Doocy, or 2 days ago, said, "Does the president think that America's cities are safe?" And she goes, "It's not a yes or no answer." Oh yes, it is.
Yeah,
it's a yes or no answer.
Yes,
that's what it is.
She has a very tough job, but it's not her fault.
But it's not that tough. Like Dagan said, how about just honesty? Yeah. She should have said, you know, the president is very concerned about this spike in crime.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was a simple thing to say, but of course that's also admitting to the fact that perhaps the Democrats have something to do with the jump in crime. But maybe you're right. If she had been honest about that, that sort of like makes it weakens the argument that the party in power bears responsibility for this jump in crime.
Yeah, and yet you got Biden attacking Republicans at every turn.
Yeah, you know, and she's clearly in over her head.
Yeah,
she's not
obviously
qualified for this job. And it's actually sort of kind of a reminder of her boss, who also does not appear to be prepared for this job at this point.
Or his number two, same thing.
Yeah, exactly, and it's and like I said, these are very serious times. We need serious people in charge making serious decisions and being honest about things, and we're not getting that, and it's painful to watch. It doesn't, it doesn't matter. And President Trump said this, I think last week in an interview. It's painful to watch.
Yeah.
He wants these people to succeed. They're not succeeding.
Yeah.
And you watch something like that episode with Biden, and you just cringe.
You know what's more painful? Driving around where we're from and seeing the pain intentionally inflicted. See, I said afflicted, inflicted on working Americans. Whether it's inflation, people struggling to put food on the table. Just complete financial uncertainty, and they have just done it recklessly because they don't care, because it's been a power grab from day one. And I had a conversation privately. What a great job Jen Psaki did for President Biden. That she was like a, she was a lady of steel.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's true, and when in a political environment like this, when people don't think that the administration has any concept, whether it's crime or inflation, of what they're going through, there's hell to pay.
Yeah, and nobody really wants to point this out. I mean, you don't really want to have to admit that your commander-in-chief is obviously failing, but you got to understand that what we see, our adversaries see the same thing. Yeah. China watched him lost and confused on the UN Global Assembly stage as well. Well, President Biden is making more false claims, this time about gasoline prices, as he pushes oil and gas companies to bring down prices and encourage business to cut off lending to fossil fuel. Watch this.
We've made historic progress. We've made historic progress. With the price of gas down $1.30 since the beginning of the summer. In some few states, it's below $3.
Yeah, there are 5 states with the cheapest gas prices in the country, according to AAA, and not one of them is below $3 a gallon. There is no state in the $2 a gallon frame, which the president just falsely said. Gasoline prices are also higher. Families are also bracing for higher heating oil bills this summer and going into the winter, rather. The National Energy Assistance Directors Association says the average cost to heat a home this winter will increase by 17.2% year over year. Joining the conversation all morning long this morning is Tiana Lowe and Hogan Gidley. Tiana, we know that this president has made a career out of misinformation to the American people, but this is the kind of thing that you can check very easily. There's no state with $2 gasoline.
Joe Biden is a serial fabulist, maybe in a bit of a less creative way than his predecessor. Sorry, Hogan. But Biden just lies about obviously, checkable facts, right? And let's not forget that the entire downward pressure.
You can't let the integrity of our elections be undermined. Democracy can't survive. It cannot survive. Not a joke. Can't survive when one side believes there's only 2 outcomes to an election. Either they win or they were cheated. That's not democracy. And that's where the mass majority of MAGA Republicans are today. They don't understand.
Let's not forget that the entire downward pressure on gas prices came from 2 things. One, it came from oil demand contracting to the lowest point since the peak of the pandemic in July 2020. Number 2, it came from Biden digging into our strategic petroleum reserves, which are now at the lowest level in 40 years. Those strategic petroleum reserves are meant to be there as a hedge against actual obstructions to our oil supply. Things that are out of our control, like natural disasters, like OPEC instituting more onerous supply cuts, which is something that just happened again, right? It is not there because of our failure of domestic policy, because of Joe Biden and this administration deciding to wage war on domestic oil producers, on their war on us being energy independent.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we are down to some serious levels here in the strategic oil reserve. And you're right. It was supposed to be for serious crises. And yet not only is he selling oil from there, but he's selling it to China. to our adversary, which I'm speechless. Hogan, a major U.S. Green Group, meanwhile, influencing the Biden administration's policymaking, has deep ties to the Chinese government. The Natural Resources Defense Council has worked on climate issues extensively in China since the 90s, and several of its top officials have worked for the CCP or government-sponsored institutions, Hogan. So is that why he's selling our petroleum to China?
It sure seems like it. Who knows what Hunter Biden's ties are with these companies as well. A lot of questions need to be answered if Republicans do actually take over in Congress. What I always find interesting about Joe Biden's argument here, he acts as though these things are happening to him. They're happening because of him. These are his policies. And when he throws his hands up and says, hey, whether it's the southern border or our energy production, you can't just click a switch and fix it. Of course you can. Just click the switch back to the Donald Trump setting where we were net exporters of energy for the first time in decades, and we had low gas prices. This is all his doing, all his fault. The people know it, and it's going to hurt him politically in the midterms, no question.
And it was Trump that filled up the strategic petroleum reserve.
And they
oil
objected
was all
to
the way
it.
down at what? Like
they objected to that too.
$20, $30 a barrel. Yeah, they didn't want him to fill it up.
Nope.
Thank God he filled it up.
John, let me ask you about the state of play right now. We saw a series of polls come out last week that showed Biden mid-50s. Some of them had Trump in the low 30s, 34.
I think mid-40s, right on Biden, not mid-50s.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, mid-40s. Yeah. Trump in the mid-30s. Yep. Head-to-head matchups looked okay. A Washington Post poll out yesterday seemed to go a bit more the Republicans' way, with Biden's approval rating, I think, at 39. But for the most part, he's been in the mid-40s. You've seen the generic ballot test split down the middle. I'm curious, though, do you think we're looking at political hand-to-hand combat, whether you're talking about Arizona, whether you're talking about Wisconsin, whether you're talking, all of these states, at the end of the day, at least in the Senate races, it looks like almost every single one of them up for grabs, could go either way still.
Yeah, I think that's right, Joe. I mean, look, what are the undeniable facts? The undeniable fact is that Joe Biden's better off now than he's been in about a year. That's a fact. Is he in a great position? Not great, but he's in a lot better position than he was a year ago. Another undeniable fact is the Democrats are in a better position than they were a year ago. Not those two things aren't unconnected. And I think everybody concedes now that if you look at for a variety of reasons, which we could go into more, ranging from the Roe v. Wade backlash to Biden's legislative wins to Trump's front and centerness in the national discussion, everyone kind of concedes Democrats have a fighting chance now to hold the House. A fighting chance. Not they're not likely to hold the House. They have a fighting chance. So the forecasts range from 1 in 4 to 1 in 3. That's, again, compared to 0 in 10 6 months ago or 9 months ago, that's a good position to be fighting from. And I think you're right about the Senate, where even with a lot of these we've talked endlessly about on the show, even with a lot of these very weak Trump-backed candidates, a lot of those races are super close right now, and it's going to be political hand-to-hand combat, I think, at the House and the Senate level. Herschel Walker right now, there's some polls that show Herschel Walker in the lead over Raphael Warnock in Georgia. That Ohio race is really close. Obviously, Pennsylvania is going to be close. Arizona is going to be close all the way down to the wire. I think, if you ask for the consensus view, Democrats and Republicans, and people really following this closely, they'd say Democrats favored slightly to hold and maybe pick up a seat or two in the Senate. And as I said before, Democrats with a 1 in 4 or 1 in 3 chance of holding the House, but Republicans likely to take it. But the one thing no one talks about anymore, which they did 6 months ago, is the red wave. No one thinks Republicans are going to gain a lot of seats in the House of Representatives. That has leveled out. Yeah, I'm curious, Reverend Al, as with every election, turnout matters the most. Certainly it matters the most in midterms when you have less voters coming out than you had
than you have traditionally in presidential elections. We certainly understand that because of the Roe decision, Roe being overturned, we certainly understand that women seem to be more motivated to register and to vote than ever before based on reporting over the past month or so. Based on surveys, a lot of women seem far more motivated than they were 6 months ago. I'm curious, though, about the Democratic base. I'm curious about, again, the concern that we've heard from Democrats, whether you're talking about black Democrats, whether you're talking about Hispanic Democrats, whether you're talking about Democrats who have traditionally been the most loyal voters for the party, who seem to seem to move more towards Republicans. What's the state of play right now for the Democratic base?
I still am very concerned about the energy in the base. As you know, I travel a lot, and as I talk to people on the ground, in churches, even activists, I'm not feeling the kind of energy that would generate a turnout like we saw in 2020. And I think that clearly the majority of Americans lean toward a lot of the policies, but that does not mean that there is going to be this, in my opinion, the needed turnout, particularly in states that John just talked about, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and other states. It's one thing, when I was younger, if you called somebody in high school for a date and you had to convince them to come and date you. It's another thing when all you do is go to voicemail. Right now, we're getting voicemail in too many places. We're not getting people picking up the phone ready to date us on Election Day.
Football season, fall is here. It also means election season is here. Dueling speeches today between President Joe Biden and House Republicans, highlighting stark differences between the two parties heading into the midterms. The GOP laid out its policy objectives if they take back the House. Afterward, the president came out swinging against their plan, calling it thin. Deborah Alfarone has the blow-by-blow recap.
At a political rally in Washington, President Biden laid out what he believes is a stark choice less than 50 days before the midterm elections.
This November, you have to choose to be a nation of hope, unity, and optimism, or a nation of fear, division, and darkness.
Ahead of the president's speech, House Republicans, led by Kevin McCarthy, were in the battleground state of Pennsylvania to unveil their commitment to America. It's a roadmap for GOP legislative priorities with 4 pillars: a strong economy, public safety, individual freedom, and government accountability.
On our very first bill, we're going to repeal 87,000 IRS agents.
In his speech, President Biden slammed the House GOP plan, which he said was, quote, thin with little or no details.
We didn't hear him mention the right to choose. We didn't hear him mention Medicare. We didn't hear him mention Social Security.
McCarthy could be poised to take the Speaker's gavel if Republicans can flip just a few House seats.
I challenge the president to join with us. Let's go across the country and let's debate what his policies has done to America and our plan for a new direction.
Former President Trump has also been pushing for big GOP gains this November and continues to stump for his picks across the country. CBS News has confirmed the former president is also launching a new political action committee, or PAC, to give Trump-endorsed candidates a multi-million-dollar boost heading into the final campaign stretch. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
Let's go to Phil Wegman right now, Real Clear Politics White House reporter. I don't know where this goes at this point, Phil. I do know that people who seem to dismiss the possibility of the government shutting down are surprised when in the end the government shuts down, even in an election year. What are the odds of that?
I think it's certainly possible because, look, Republicans are going to say that this gives them something to go back to voters and campaign on. But I think that if you look a little closer behind the scenes, the strategic considerations here are very interesting. Remember the last time McCarthy tried to become Speaker? Who stopped him? It was the House Freedom Caucus. Why? Because they didn't think that he was sufficiently conservative. This time around, that threat from his flank is no longer a consideration because he's joined arms with them. Meanwhile, though, after McCarthy put out that tweet, we haven't heard anything from Senate Minority Leader McConnell about whether or not there should be a clean CR or whether or not there should be appropriations during the lame duck period. And I think that's interesting because, if you go to the fiscal cliff, back in 2012, who was it who stepped in at the last moment to broker a deal? It was then Minority Leader McConnell and then Vice President Biden. I think that, as the president often says, history has a habit of rhyming.
I had forgotten that, Phil. You're quite right about that, though. Each side weighs the political calculations to your point, and maybe Republicans feel, this border issue is resonating right now. Even those who might be criticizing, Republican governors for all the buses and the planes that go to Martha's Vineyard, it's putting it on the radar now for a lot of Americans. So they feel this is worth the fight, maybe for their base. But of course, that all blows up if we shut down the government, right?
Because do we think that President Biden is going to give in to the considerations of, the minority party in Congress or in the Senate? I think that the odds are very unlikely on that point. He would have to make a major concession before the election. So there's obviously a lot of posturing here, but you're absolutely right. Republicans, they see what's going on cable news. They see how the White House has had to respond to DeSantis. They've gone to Republicans to make the rebuttal, not the other way around. So clearly the GOP sees this as a winning issue, and they think that maybe if they can brand a spending fight in the border security category, that maybe voters reward them for it.
What's the latest on tracking how the midterms look now? Less than 7 weeks to go, Phil. This consensus, always dangerous, as you often remind me, is that they do take back the House, maybe not by the numbers that they had hoped some weeks back, but the Senate, that's tough.
Well, if we take a closer look at the generic ballot, what we see is that Democrats have sort of closed the gap with Republicans. And the reason why is that this polling is being done post-Dobbs, after the Inflation Reduction Act has been passed into law, as gas prices have come down a little bit. That has increased Biden's approval rating, and a rising tide raises all ships, right? So I think that's why there's some parity there in the generic ballot. That said, if you look at some of the big swings, 2010 or 2014, Republicans were trailing up until around Labor Day in the generic ballot, and then they made that up to take big gains. In 2018, though, when it was Democrats who had gains in the Congress, they kept their momentum throughout that period, throughout the summer and then up to Election Day. So the question now is, can Republicans, can they find another gear? And maybe the border security argument is what pushes them to the next level.
Yeah, and it's always in the last couple of weeks. I can distinctly remember, showing my age here, Phil, in 1994, Republicans were expected to pick up maybe a couple of dozen seats. They picked up more than 50 in the final swing. So you never know, but we'll see. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I mean, I don't remember that election, but I'll take your word for it.
Rub it in, young man. All right, Phil Wegman in Washington, D.C. on that. You'll have to take my word on that. It ended up being more of a landslide than polls were indicating.